Hey everybody, what's up? This is G here, and I'm here with Cyrus, and this is another episode of Solo Fighter. Today we're going to be talking about a whole list of topics from GSP to UFC 219, even the currently going on right now UFC on Fox 26. So don't forget to join us, share this with your friends, and join us in this episode. And yet again, thank you for joining us. Cyrus, do you have anything to say?
Hey. What's up, everybody? It's been about a week since we were last on. It's great to be back. Been some great fights since we last were on air. Great events. Those especially particularly the last one, UFC Fight Night 123. And we've got a great show on for you tonight. Lots to discuss.
All right, so let's get into it. Our first topic that we're going to be talking about tonight is GSP vacating the title. I mean, it's kind of something that a lot of people already figured was going to happen, or something weird was going to happen with GSP. He just seems to be in that mode where he wants to do what he wants to do, and vacating the title to go on to something else, whether that was a fight in another division or somewhere else, just seems like more plausible than anything else. Like, what do you have to say about that, Tyrus?
Yeah, well, I don't have a problem with it. I thought it was really I thought it was the honorable thing to do. He didn't want to fight anymore. I mean, from everything he said, it sounded like it just didn't sound it didn't sound like it was even possible for him to fight and be healthy. To gain all that weight and be healthy. Like his body obviously suffered. He's not the biggest guy. He's a strong guy. So eating to keep the weight on must have been hard for him. And I mean, it was detailed. It wasn't just him looking for excuses.
Right.
And the way he vacated less than a month after winning it, that was honorable. Like he didn't Chael Sonnen
the division or for more money or anything.
Exactly. It wasn't a scumbag move at all. It was actually really honorable. He didn't pull a bitch thing. He didn't pull a Connor, holding up a division and just, reaping the rewards while other people scrambled. So all the people who fought for the right to fight for the belt or to be in the discussion, they can all get on. They've got closure and they have a clear path once again to a title fight or a shot at the belt. And I find that really, it's just typical GSP. It's just the people's reactions are pretty disturbing.
Right, like reactions like people saying that he was scared to fight Robert Whitaker, or reactions that GSP just because he's scared of everybody.
Yeah, reactions like our dear president, UFC president Dana White, basically like trying to paint him as a coward. Like, oh yeah, I knew he'd screw us over, and he had no intention of defending or spending any time in middleweight division. Well, you're not in his head. You don't know. Like, if it's really unfair to say that about GSP, because I mean, like, the guy has a record number of defenses as a welterweight, so like obviously has no problem defending and shirking his duties as a champion. He never has. So there you have it. He did the right thing. Like, he's
okay. So you believe that he did the right thing by vacating the title because of his health issues, and really, do you believe that he has anything else really to prove at the middleweight division? Like,
no.
most people were saying that, or anything.
He's got nothing to prove. He's got nothing to prove as a fighter. He's got nothing to prove as a champion. He took on a guy that used to fight light heavyweight, dropped him, knocked him down, and then choked him out. So you can't you can't argue with that. You can't question him, because he got the belt fair and square. And then when he decided, like, it wasn't conducive to a healthy lifestyle to stay up there and wait, he vacated. I don't have a problem with it. Like, I am a GSP fan, but I'm also, I can be fair. I can, like, if he'd sat on the belt like some others, and never defended and had no intention of defending and just kept the belt on for as long as he could, then yeah, I would have had something to say about it, because that's not fair. It's not right. It's disrespectful, and it's unfair to all these fighters that are fighting. I mean, look at Yoel Romero. He earned the right to fight for the belt, and he had to take on a ridiculous fight with Robert Whitaker for the interim when the champion, well, the so-called champion, was fine and healthy and still looking to make a fight with GSP, which is ridiculous, you know. So
Okay.
I have no problem with it.
So, where do you think GSP heads from here? Considering that really he can go into any division and to do. Like, do you think he takes a money fight, or you think he takes a legacy fight?
Either or, man. I don't. He's got a lot of options. He could go back to welterweight. He could take on whoever's holding the belt, which is, of course, Tyron Woodley. He could drop down. I do believe him when he says that he could drop down to lightweight, so he could go there, or he could just do money fights, fun fights. You know, like if anybody has earned the right to go for money fights or fun fights or freak show fights, it's GSP. Just like, you know, John Jones, if that's all he wants to do when he gets back is just go for crazy super fights or money fights, as they call them nowadays. I'm getting bored of that term, by the way. They've earned the right. John Jones defended his belt 8 times. He would have, by now, it would have been 10 times. Same goes for Mighty Mouse. Same goes for, you know, any long-standing champion that's held and defended the belt with honor and skill. Like, as soon as you get to like 5 defenses, I think you're entitled to look for, especially in a sport where they still underpay you, and they, you know, the payment structure in MMA and UFC in particular is terrible. I mean, we don't have to get back into the whole Reebok deal to realize, you know. I just take exception to what others do. Like a guy like McLeprechaun, who was handed a shot at both belts that he got his hands on and never defended. And it, you know, it's like he obviously never had any intention of defending. And he put two of the most talent-laden weight classes. I mean, it ain't even on hold. They're dead in the water. They're stagnating. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows. I mean, it's just so bad that you get a top super great fight, interim fight in Tony Ferguson versus Kevin Lee. And that belt, that interim belt, ain't even guaranteed a shot at the lightweight champion. I mean, like, it's laughable in the worst possible way. It's a disgrace. So yeah, like GSP, he got out the way. Now we've got a very good title fight. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and like, you can't question either man. Luke Rockhold versus Robert Whitaker, or Whitaker as he's the champion versus Rockhold. That's awesome.
Right. So you think that GSP is here and he's just kind of clearing out problems and, as we say, fixing situations in certain divisions.
Absolutely. Like the middleweight division is as great as it's ever been. It's talent laden. It's just like there's so many different personalities, but more importantly, great fighters. And, you know, they all have their skill sets. They all have, you know, amazing skill sets, but also they're all very different people. So it's a matchup dream. You can match any of the top 10 up, and you know you're going to have a good fight. And even the guys outside the top 10, talent laden. Like, I'm not Uriah Hall's biggest fan, but he's a freakish athlete. He's probably, as far as this like pure raw athleticism, he's probably one of the UFC's top athletes. So any fight he's going to be in, if he shows up to fight, is going to be fun. You've got that Polish fighter who fought and lost to Uriah Hall recently. Awesome striker. You've got a lot of talent in the middleweight division. From top 25 in the UFC is just full of talent. I mean, you're gonna have what's his name? Thiago.
Thiago
Thiago.
Alves
Yeah, not
or
Alves.
Silva?
It's other. Yeah, God, they're hard to. Santos, Thiago Santos, Mareta.
Thiago Marietta Santos. Okay.
I love that dude, man, and he's gonna be fighting. He's gonna be fighting Anthony Smith. You know, Lionheart,
Yep.
and that's okay. There, I do not believe either of them are in the top 10. Definitely not Anthony Hamilton because he just got into the UFC. But Mareta might be in the top 10 or just outside. But I mean, that's a great fight. It's like it's going to be violent. They're both heavy-handed strikers. They're both very violent, and it's going to be great. And that's not even a top 10 fight. That's not even an eliminator fight. But that's not a fight you want to miss. And then at the top of the division, you've got the Romeros, you've got the Jacares. I mean, it's unbelievable. Even though they lost a couple of really good ones recently, like Gegard was huge. Gegard is
still huge.
An all-time talent. He's a legend of the sport. So it really sucked that we lost him. And we lost him for the simple reason that Michael freaking Bisping wouldn't defend. So I mean, he discussed that on the MMA Hour and in plenty of interviews since he signed with Bellator. Said no, the money was important. What he actually said these words, like the money was important. Like he got paid well, and he has more. You know, he can get all his old sponsors back. But the deal breaker was when he asked during negotiations with the UFC, like, when could he fight for the title, or what did he need to do to get to the title? Like, who do I need to beat to get to a title, to get a title shot? They couldn't answer him because they had a champion that wouldn't defend, that was actively looking to avoid anybody who was a danger to him. And that's disgraceful. It makes your whole promotion look really bad because you're not a fight promotion anymore. You're an entertainment agency. That's basically it. So yeah, I'm just to get back to what we were talking about. No, GSP has done a lot of good and just like being honest and saying, look, I'm not going to fight anymore. Here's the belt back. Like everybody can, like, you know, whether it's Weidman, whether it's Romero, whether it's Jacare, they all know what they need to do. It's very clear what they need to do.
Well, I mean, it's good to have GSP back, and he's definitely causing some more of that GSP vacating, disappearing chaos in the good way. Because if he does fight Conor McGregor and he clears Conor McGregor out of the way, the type of ratings, if not chaos, that would cause in the UFC, it would be good chaos.
It would be the biggest MMA fight in history. As far as pay-per-views, as far as whatever following, it would be huge if he ever fought. I know that's not what we're talking about, but I just thought of that.
Yeah. Just had to ask that question while I was at it. So, I mean, GSP vacating is definitely a good thing. It's healthy. It's a good thing for the division. It already clears out one problem. So yeah, I'm gonna have to say I definitely agree with it, especially the way that he did it.
Yeah, he did it in typical GSP fashion.
Right, classy. Exactly. And as a martial artist, still. Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
He's one of the few.
Refused. So it's actually pretty cool. And I don't understand why people would be mad or say that he's ducking people like Robert Whitaker or Luke Rockhold or Yoel Romero or anything like that. If we came down to it, GSP would fight them if GSP wanted to fight them.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the other thing as well that I appreciated from GSP is he was very honest. Like you don't get any of that Conor shit where he talks shit to people that he has no intention of fighting. Like he was very honest about it. Like he looked at the middleweight division when he was negotiating his title shot versus Bisping, and he was saying like guys like Rockhold just are a nightmare for me. They're way too long, way too big. They're like I mean, you look at a guy like Rockhold, and then you look at GSP. They look like 2 or 3 weight divisions separate them.
Yeah.
I mean, GSP is my height.
Time I see him, he looks like a heavyweight.
Yeah, GSP is just under 6 foot, right?
Yeah, Luke Rockhold is bigger than Daniel Cormier.
Way bigger, way taller, way longer. I mean, Cormier is a freakishly small heavyweight, and then he was a small, like in height, he's a small light heavyweight. So
Right.
like Luke Rockhold looks like a light heavyweight and easily could fight at heavyweight. Like that's a fight I would have loved to see with him versus Verdum. That would be a great fight to see, and I think we'll see it one day. But yeah, I mean, Luke Rockhold
still happen.
Same goes for Chris Weidman. Weidman, anytime he wants to fight at light heavy, he's got it, man, because he's the size of a light heavyweight. He's bigger than Cormier. I remember, I'll never forget, this is how amazing Cormier is. Like, sometimes it would be nice if people could put things into perspective, like how amazing Cormier is. I saw a picture of him and Robbie. Robbie's taller and bigger than him. Like, Cormier's a big, strong dude. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's like, rail thin or anything, but he's a strong wrestler dude, but he's very, very short for weight classes. Like, whether it's heavyweight or light heavyweight, he's actually undersized, like in height and in length. And like, that's when I see pictures like that. I mean, I've always appreciated Cormier. I've never, I'm not one of those guys who don't, and it's up to you. If you don't like him, you don't like him. There's nothing wrong, but don't disrespect him. Don't give him dues. Like, this man can, like, as he is right now, even after having been knocked out by John Jones, has a claim as one of the greatest heavyweights ever. He can actually state his claim as the greatest heavyweight ever. When you see what he's done, who he fought, and when you consider as a heavyweight, he never lost a round, and he faced people like Mir, Roy Nelson, Josh Barnett, and never lost a single round. And oh yeah, I think he was the first one to stop, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the first guy to ever stop a Bigfoot Silva. And this is not the Bigfoot Silva we see now. We're talking about the Bigfoot Silva who is freakishly durable. Like, you could just kick him, punch him, knee him in the jaw, and he wouldn't go down. And he knocked him out with one punch. So yeah, that's Daniel Cormier for you.
Fair enough. Well, let's move on to our next subject, because you actually have a vested interest in this one that I wasn't even paying attention to in totality. So, drug testing revelation going on with the UFC and USADA and WME. Like explain that for me and explain it for the people. What's going on with this newfound revelation about fighters being able to on USADA testing? Like, what is this about?
Well, basically, I have to give credit to where credit is due. Bloody Elbow, who do excellent investigative reporting. A journalist that works for Bloody Elbow by the name of Ian Kidd did a little digging, because there's been some funny goings on lately as far as drug testing, and he discovered there's a bylaw or a stipend in the UFC and USADA agreement, they have this bylaw that allows the UFC and USADA to grant certain fighters, this is the language, certain fighters the right not to be tested. Like, they can suspend testing for any fighter they want. So that means, like, for example, let's say Verdum retires tomorrow, as far as the UFC are concerned, they'll suspend the drug testing and it will not be public. So as far as we're concerned, Joe, fans or even journalists or other fighters, Verdum, I'm just using Verdum as an example here, will be retired officially and not subject to testing, but exactly, and can come back anytime he wants without being tested for 4 months, because it'll be between him and UFC and USADA, and they will not release it. It will not be publicly known that he's taking time off, that he's retired. So it's basically proof that this whole drug testing, whatever you want to call law or directive, or is just full of bull. It's a disgrace because they're basically they're favorite, they're showing favoritism towards certain fighters. And they're like, I mean, let's be honest, they're completely playing with their own rules and regulations. They're shirking their own rules and regulations for certain fighters, and it's corrupt. And the fact that USADA are, it's bad.
Do you feel like they're doing this on purpose, or do you feel like this is a certain loophole that or the fighters
There's
and they're
no,
able
no,
to exploit?
Of course there
Or
is.
do
I
you
mean,
think that WME is doing this on purpose?
well, it's I don't know. I'm not in their heads, but the fact that it's there and there's a capability to do it is a problem. The fact that it's not available for every fighter, regardless of weight class or whether Dana and pals like him, is a problem. The possibility for corruption and collusion doesn't have to happen. As long as there's a possibility for it, an ease for it, that's a problem. That's why I had a problem with the USADA deal in the first place, because there were too many holes in there. I mean, first of all, it was draconian. It was unfair towards the fighters. The fighters didn't have any say. But then, the more you dig into it, the more we hear about him every year, and it's been around since 2015. It's been around for over 2 years and a half now. You realize how unfair it is, and then now with this revelation, it's full of shit. It's basically like, I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but let's say the UFC wanted to kind of control who wins, who gets their hands on the belts, who has more success than others, like fighters that let's say fighters that they like versus fighters that give them a lot of problems. Then they have that capability now. They can retire fighters and allow them to take whatever drugs or performance enhancing drugs they want and give them all the advantages in the world, and then test the other ones like up the wazoo and even have them suspended. I mean, look at what's been going on with John Jones's career and life in the last 2 years. It's been just one thing after another. I'm not saying he's a sacrificial lamb here. Like, he's made mistakes. But when you consider that, this is the second time in a row John Jones popped for an illegal substance, and then there's other guys who are probably, you could easily be in the same boat, because it's very easy to pop nowadays, because there's more, there's thousands of items on that
Supplements, and there's
exactly,
that people can't even read or pronounce.
Exactly. And then remember, like, supplements aren't subject to FDA control, so you can basically put whatever you want in your so-called supplement, and that can make an MMA athlete pop or piss hot, as they say in the biz. And that's just it's rotten, man. It's absolutely rotten, because MMA fighters aren't like basketball players or football players or even baseball players or even soccer players, for that matter. These guys are unionized. I'm not even a fan of the unions, but they're protected, and they, like, the budgets are different, of course. Like, these guys are employees in these sports, and
right,
they get taken care of. MMA fighters basically have to take care of everything. They have to take care of, like, paying for their training camps, paying for their coaches, paying sometimes even for their sparring partners. Then they need to medicate or feed, take care of themselves. Whereas these guys in the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the major leagues, the MLS, they have people who take care of these things for them. That's the difference. And they're athletes. Yeah, go ahead, Gerald.
Oh, so I was just saying, I was just like, so basically there's a big loophole. Somebody knows about it, but yet they're not plugging it.
Yeah. It's not right. It's unfair. Thank God that reporter was on the case and found out about it. Like, I already had my doubts. I knew something was going on, because there's been too many strange lately, where I was asking myself some questions, and then now with this revelation, we know. I understand. It's all becoming really clear, and it's rotten. It
Okay.
really is.
So, do you believe that it's they're actually actively using this to benefit them in some way, or that it's just people jumping through loopholes?
Actually, you know what? I was going to say, I opened up with saying, like, even if they don't, we don't know. But the fact that they can is a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I don't even have to choose my words that carefully because it's been proven. Yes, they have. They absolutely have used that to their own advantage. That's before we even found out about this. They did it with Brock, UFC
Yep.
200.
Yeah. How
They
they had a whole fiasco with his re-entry into the testing pool, and everything being kind of secret, and even Mark Hunt knowing about it and
Yeah,
saying that this guy's going to come in on something.
it was disgraceful. Like the Mark Hunt at the UFC 200 presser was actually pretty pissed as it was. It's like, this is a joke. They're going on and about like keeping the sport clean and like cleaning up the sport, and yet like this guy can just waltz in and he doesn't have to follow the same rules as I do or others do just because he's Brock. And even like the UFC's defense or how'd you say, excuse or defense of that was, oh, look at all the money we're going to make. Like, this is a historical event, and that's ridiculous. I mean, boxing's no better. Like what they did, allowing McGregor to enter a ring with
Enter into the whole commission and get license and everything like that.
exactly, and allow the, like, I'm not just saying, like that was bad, but so this is even worse. I'd say this is worse because it touches a whole sport. It touches a whole, like, hundreds of fighters. Like the UFC have close to 700 fighters on their roster at the moment. I know they don't cut fighters as much as they used to, but it doesn't matter. This is a lot of people's livelihoods, and their health and well-being. And this whole thing was about fighter safety, wasn't it? Like, we care about the fighters. That's what we're cutting, performance enhancing drugs out of the sport. But
Anymore.
no, and I don't think they ever did. So yeah, I was gonna say, oh, just the fact that it's there and it's so sloppy is dangerous. But no, it's been proven they don't give a damn, because last year was just plain as and the fact that they like, we just got Lyoto Machida back after 18 months. Really done anything wrong.
Uh-huh.
Fought for something that wasn't even a performance enhancing drug. It was just a banned substance, but he actually proved that he unknowingly took it because he was taking a legal supplement that happened to be tainted, and yet they give him the they give him they give him the business. They gave him 18 months, and basically they would have never known he was on
If he didn't come in and tell them
he
himself.
was the one who basically reported himself, because he's such an honorable, decent man, honest man. He reported himself, and they gave him 18 months. And then you've got other fighters. I mean, even the way they go on about it, like, for whatever reason, they weren't high on Lyoto at the time. Then there's been other fighters that have pissed hot for way worse things, and the UFC was more than happy to look the other way and say, oh yeah, you must have eaten tainted meat, or whatever. And I'm not saying these guys were cheating, but why can't Lyoto get the same largesse or the same benefit of the doubt? And it's happened more than once. That's just one example. Like, over the last 2.5 years since they implemented that USADA deal, that disgraceful USADA deal, there's been a lot of fighters that have been screwed over. I mean, Mirko Cro Cop, and that same thing happened with Mirko. Mirko came forward and said, look, before I signed with you guys, I was on HGH because my shoulder was healing for rehab.
Uh-huh.
And they tried to, and I mean, I guess Cro Cop is such a big personality, superstar, that they had to release him and allow him to go back to Japan and fight in Ryzen. But he even said that
deal, all in all,
yeah,
for fans and him alike.
they tried to strong arm him into turning into a rat, into being an informant. I mean, what the fuck, you know? So yeah, no, of course it is. Of course they've used it to their advantage. They've been doing it for a while now. And the most blatant
Well,
example,
hopefully they
yeah,
and open and everything, they actually take a look at that and they're like, hey, we got to legitimize our sport before we even turn it into an entertainment type business. And they're just getting busted left and right. They need to do some fixing.
yeah, yeah. And then you add in, I mean, Dana and the Zuffa boys, as I call them, caused a lot of damage. But now when you've got WMEIMG,
WME, like they don't care. They don't care at all.
they don't care. They care about the bottom line, the dollar. And I can't say I blame them because they overpaid, they grossly overpaid for the UFC. Like any financial expert valued the UFC at 1 to 1.5, 1.7 maximum $1 billion. They paid nearly 5. So like they have to make up that money somewhere. And with all the bad decisions they've made, they lost. The year is ending beautifully. On a performance standpoint, the cards they've put out, especially the pay-per-view cards, but even the fight night cards are pretty stacked. So that's been great. Pardon me. Ever since UFC 214, we've had some really great performances, great pay-per-views. I mean, you had 214, then you had 215, which was huge. 216 was massive. El Kakui versus Kevin Lee, Motown Phenom.
Yeah.
And then 217 was probably the best card of the year alongside UFC 214, Cormier versus John Jones 2. And then just last month we had, or this month, beginning of this month, we had UFC 218, which was just stunning. It was just amazing. An amazing card, Max Holloway.
And UFC 219 coming up, which just main headline fight, and then they got Khabib here later on in episode, guys. I know you're waiting for that, but give us a second. We'll get to that.
Oh yeah, that's going to be the main topic of our episode tonight, because that's a historical card. That's a historical main event. There's going to be a lot of great fights on that card. So yeah, but
I mean, before we do get there and everything, we have to talk about your favorite fighter. I mean, as you call him.
Come again?
I mean, we have to talk about McLeprechaun.
Yeah.
All the things that he's just currently messing up. I mean, like, what are the things that you think that he's currently messing up, not just in his life, but also in his career? Pretty sure you have a small list.
Oh man, he's messing up himself because he's making himself look bad. He's dumping all over the sport. Like, I mean, I guess it was last month when he jumped into the cage and went after the ref.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't think he sees it that way. I don't think he's thinking, because he probably has a bunch of yes men around him who aren't going to tell him the truth. But I mean, what he did was huge, because he just spat on the whole sport. He just, that was basically, I'm sure that's not what he meant to do, the message he was trying to put forth, but it's basically his attitude, the way he just walked into the cage before he jumped into the cage, before the ref even called it, was just disgraceful. It's like you're saying, basically, like, I'm a star, I don't have to even, like, listen to a ref. Sorry, in the cage, the ref is, you don't discuss with him, you don't argue with him when he tells you something. I mean, you can always talk back, but if a referee doesn't call time on a fight, nobody has any business being in there. And he just ran into there, then attacked him. Okay, he didn't beat him up or anything, but he did put his hands on him, shoved him. It was just, I don't even know what to say. And then it's just one thing after another with him. Then there's that whole episode with the judge. He was in court for speeding tickets that he didn't pay, and the judge.
Yeah.
the judge actually got really offended and said, like, he's not respecting the court or me. And, he actually, like, the guy was late because he was taking selfies of himself and putting them on Instagram. Jesus. And then, yeah, the whole episode was really, the whole sorry Bellator episode was bad. It stank. Good for Bellator. They made ratings heaven with it and everything, but
Yeah.
it just looked horrible. It looked bad. Like a guy who is being marketed as
A
the number one
superstar, a role
superstar,
model.
the most skilled MMA fighter of all time, all that garbage that they come out with. And he's doing that. He's basically saying he has no respect for the ref, for the sport. If he wants to get into the cage, it's been a long time coming, ever since that Mayweather fight. And I mean, I'm not begrudging him his money, but like ever since he made like those millions in that Mayweather fight, he's been even worse than usual. He's been pretty
I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm starting to think that he might actually be the person deep down inside.
Oh yeah.
Like the whole notorious moniker and everything. Like at first I'm just like, all right, fine, it's just a name. Nobody cares and everything. But he's really living party, screw everything up lifestyle. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
here's one point that I want to throw in there. The rumors that he has like a mistress or something
I didn't hear about that.
that's pregnant.
Oh.
Have you heard about that?
No, I hadn't. I remember what's his name? Eddie Alvarez but I thought that was just trash talk. Build up to UFC 205. He was saying your woman's expecting twins, and I ain't talk about your partner or your girlfriend either. So
Right.
I think that was the closest I ever heard to him having a mistress.
Yeah, no, it's some weird thing. I don't know if it's a rumor, but then it was all over Instagram for a while and stuff, and for Facebook. So I'm just like, I'm not even gonna look into this because this is just trashy. This is
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's true, and blah blah blah, and then it just all disappeared. And I'm just like, in between the partying, off, the flashiness, like people are just falling like out of love with the whole "look at me, I have lots of money" moniker. He's becoming weather.
Yeah, he's becoming, and it's not even like Mayweather does, whether you like it or not, and a lot of people can't stand him. Mayweather's Mayweather. He's always been that way. I mean, like I believe a lot of it is an act to make people hate him so that they want to see him beat even more. But like whether you like him, respect him or not, you have to respect the fighter and the businessman. And Mayweather is a very savvy businessman. Whereas Connor ain't. Connor is just like he's keeping up with the Joneses. Everybody knows how tiring that is because it's like, oh, they've got that. I need to get that. And that's what it feels like whenever I see pictures of his social media adventures. And that's what it looks like. It looks like a guy who's just looking to be the same as Mayweather, to keep up with other athletes and personality, and he's giving himself a certain look as well. Like it's always been fake. It's like he's trying to be.
A good look.
No, it's not a good look.
Your own fans who have been with you since the beginning, who have called you people's hero, and now they're turning on you and like, I don't like your attitude.
Yeah, people are getting fed
up.
up.
You know you have a big problem.
He's forgetting what got him to the Nance in the first place. Because the reason, like, I mean, Irish are very, very loyal and very nationalistic and are proud to be, and they should be. However, he's spitting on his own people because Irish have never been into showing off and the bling and stuff, and the fact that he's got like a belt and he's finding every excuse under the sun not to defend it, trying to pick a fight with every boxer or whatever under the sun. Even though today he was like talking about how he needs a real fight, he needs to get back to MMA. I mean, he was allowed to fight Mayweather, which is a mistake. He was allowed to fight Mayweather in an official bout, which was an even bigger mistake. Then he was also allowed to fight with smaller gloves, which, like basically he was given every
Not going
advantage.
to help in his favor.
Yeah. And like Floyd said the other day, and that was really nice of him. Like he's, he was saying basically, because of the dogs, the way the dogs are, um, you know, what am I saying? I'm trying to make a point. I lost my train of thought. No, it's like, like,
That's no
I'm
problem.
sorry. What I was trying to say is like most of the fighters are treated like dogs. I'm sorry. Ever since McLeprechaun became like the star, the superstar, I call them the dogs because there's McLeprechaun and then there's the rest of everybody, and they are dogs. They're treated worse than dogs because they're left with scraps. And he's been given every largesse, and whether he's been in boxing, like they could have treated him really. Mayweather could have really treated him bad, and he gave him every largesse, every respect, and every courtesy, and yet he couldn't get it done. And then in the UFC, it's the same thing. Like he has everything. Like basically, the UFC has been the counter promotion because they promote almost exclusively McLeprechaun. I mean, I know Mike Perry's gotten the rub of late. Like they obviously appreciate him, but not on Connor's level. Like he's been given every advantage, and this is what he does with it. Like it's pretty bad. It makes the
Right.
sport look bad. Makes anybody associated with that promotion is looking really bad today because it's ridiculous. Like, and today he was going on about how he had to defend the belt and everything. I need to legitimize the belt. Like that's one of the biggest jokes I'll ever hear because there was nothing wrong with the belts when he showed up. There's something wrong now because he ain't defending. He ain't wearing it with pride. And to wear it with pride, you need to defend it with pride. And he hasn't, not once. Whether it was in Cage Warriors before he came to America, whatever. It's
So, well, I mean, now he's saying that he wants to get back into real fighting, as he says, and everything, which means that he's not going to fight Pacquiao, no matter what Pacquiao's group says, that they're in talks to have a fight with Conor McGregor. Like, I don't even understand why Pacquiao would say something like that when they
money.
know that, other than the fact that knowing that Dana White hates Bob Arum and everything, and everybody around Bob Arum or anything to do with Bob Arum, especially Pacquiao. And Dana White and company, knowing that Conor McGregor has to come back to legitimize a belt, and he can't be out another year. They know
No.
that they need to get him back in there to draw the eyes back towards the UFC because yes, they've been having a great year, like so far now, but for next year, they're going to definitely need that revenue from Conor McGregor.
No, you're absolutely right. They're going to need, and that's why it's just so perplexing when you have the UFC president dumping all over GSP. Like they need GSP. They need GSP like they've never needed him before because he's one of the few fighters who can guarantee a certain amount. If he's on a pay-per-view, it's going to sell well because he is a big paper. He's the biggest MMA pay-per-view star in history. And then same thing goes for McLeprechaun. Right. He's a known draw. And he's a known draw. He's a champion. He's done all that stuff, but he's never defended. So no matter how talented or fast or great a timer he is, you've got to prove it. And there's no way of.
And the funny thing is, I'm going to toss this in there. I think a lot of people would be paying to see Conor McGregor actually defend the belt rather than just to see him fight somebody. Really going to defend the belt? I would pay to see that. I think that's what fans like me like. I want to pay to see him defend the belt. against Tony Ferguson, against GSP, against Tyrone Woodley, against somebody. Just get in the ring and fight.
Couldn't agree more. It would be great.
So,
It would be great to just get back to, the meritocracy. Like you win 5 in a row against,
right.
certain level opponent, you've got a title shot. Things like that, instead of, always fighters, whether they be men or women, are looking to expand and do other stuff. Like a lot of MMA fighters have to have second or third jobs to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
And McLeprechaun, he's been given everything. Like when I say given everything, he really has. He's gone the extra mile. And I mean, they went the extra mile for him, promoted him to the hilt, the point where it was almost embarrassing. And this is the way he repays them, the way he repays us, and the way he, So yeah, I understand why some of his former fans are turning on him, because it's ridiculous. It's disgraceful.
Right. And now he's trying to put like not only the fans, the belt, to put the promotion in a stranglehold. I mean, like with the claims of he's saying that he won't come back unless he's a partner, unless they pay him a huge amount of money. Like it gets to a point where they're gonna be like, he's demanding too much.
Absolutely. Like you can't fight and own the promotion at the same time. I know in boxing they allow it to. I mean, like even Oscar, when he started Golden Boy and Golden Boy started getting to the top, he retired because he conflict of interest. Now that's just worse. Like he's talking about how he needs to legitimize the belts. Like the fact that the belts or the titles are not as respected as they used to be is down to someone like McLeprechaun, because he's constantly walking that line, with excuses, or the that line between boxing and MMA. Like
Right.
he's not.
So talking about the line between boxing and MMA, what do you think about Floyd Mayweather? You're talking about he's going to come over to the UFC. I'm going to have to go ahead and just say this right now. I believe that Floyd Mayweather wants nothing to do with the UFC.
No,
I mean, he
I agree.
seriously demanded $1 billion.
Yeah,
$1
and
billion for 4 or 5 fight contracts. That's insanity.
Yeah, it is insanity, but he's worth it. Like if
He is.
Mayweather came to UFC, it would do crazy numbers, because all these people would be like paying to see
See a boxer like Floyd Mayweather get beat up.
Yeah, see the pay-per-view. They'd make up that money. Like, but it's just shows how desperate and how bad they are at managing things, and how bad they are at nurturing stars, because they, believe you me, there's a lot of potential superstars on the UFC roster. It's just, they're not seeing it. They're just so obsessed with Conor and McLeprechaun and his following and his nonsense. But there's a lot of potential superstars in the UFC.
Do you think
you got
that
Mike Perry
able to be their superstar spotlighter? Do it.
Who's that?
You.
Do I see other fighters getting to that level?
No, I was just saying, do you think you'd be able to be their superstar spotlighter if they asked you to do it?
Well, yeah, I could give it a try. I'd be happy to give it a try. But
you
no, what I'm saying
is you should actually message the UFC and say, hey, let me be your superstar spotlighter.
Yeah, man, that would be funny. That would be a lot of fun. No, hey, I mean, like, hey, you never know. Like it's everybody's dream. Like if you love if you love MMA and you fight and you're competing, like that's everybody's dream. Of course, I'd love to do that. I'd love I. But what I'm trying to say is, they've got so many guys who could headline for them. Like Luke Rockhold. his last appearance, they was the best TV UFC on Fox show in a long time.
Uh-huh.
Tonight's probably going to do decent numbers because Lawler does have a following, so there's a lot of potential superstars. Then you've got this English kid called Darren Till.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He's an amazing um, athlete.
Yeah, he is definitely amazing.
Hello.
They
Yeah, we
just
got
signed
cut
him.
off. Yeah. No, there's a lot of Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy. How can you can't tell me Wonder Boy doesn't have star potential? That guy's amazing as a fighter, as a person. He's just an amazing person. Really true martial artist, mixed martial artist.
Right.
Uh, but these guys aren't getting the rub because they don't talk shit like Connor. So, and as well, the fact that Connor can do whatever he wants. And I'm not even talking about morally right now. I'm talking about just the basic, the basic acceptable behavior for a fighter, if you will. McLeprechaun just pisses all over that because he's just looking for his money fights, and it's like, man,
Right.
he hasn't even earned the right to have a money fight because he's constantly avoiding people. So he's been avoiding Tony for years. He's avoided he avoided Habib. He's avoiding a lot of different fighters because there's a whole lineup of scary Bass Lucasades. I'm sorry, Jesus. Um, uh, uh, Basically, there's just so much talent, and it's going to waste. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. It's understandable. Well, I mean, everybody knows Conor McGregor is like, oh, let's watch Conor McGregor because he's such a great knockout artist. Let's talk about somebody who else has talent. Brian Ortega.
Wow, what a performance, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, against Cub Swanson, somebody who was going for his next title shot and
exactly.
everything to be a serious contender in that whole title shot thing, and just nobody say I didn't expect that at
No, I
all.
didn't either. No, I knew it was going to be a great fight, and I've been high on Brian Ortega, but this is Cub Swanson we're talking about. I mean, this guy's good everywhere. He's an amazing striker. He's got knockout power in both hands, and he's a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And
Right.
Ortega caught him. And this was probably one of the best versions of Cub Swanson, most complete Cub Swansons ever. I mean, Cub Swanson's been on a heck of a run recently, and Brian Ortega just caught him and submitted him. So, wow, like what a
He just
performance!
made it seem like it was a walk in the park.
Yeah, he did. He did. I mean, early on, Cub was having a lot of success with the striking. Then the second it hit the mat, like he got caught. It's almost like a reminiscent of Fedor. I mean, there's no disgrace or whatever or complaint against complaint against any fighter. It's just he he put himself in the title conversation, and good for him. Like I've been a huge fan of Ortega for a long time. It's just never dared go. Never dared. I never dared pick. Like I thought Cub was favorite. I knew Ortega was going to be tough, but the way he did it, the way he snapped on that submission hold was beautiful. He's a real talent.
Yeah, that was just
Ortega.
something that I just rewatched it, and I'm just like, Cub Swanson, amazing boxer. Like he showcased all of that in that fight. Black belt in jiu-jitsu, and the skill gap just seemed so huge that it seemed unrealistic from the first round to the second round. The way that like Ortega nearly submitted him in the first round, and Cub Swanson looked like he was into the second round. Just that huge gap in between their levels of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is astounding. It's just completely mind blowing, and you could only imagine that type of gap if Brian Ortega was to face somebody like Holloway, or or say even Frankie Edgar. Like nobody expects Frankie Edgar to really get submitted, but showing of what Brian Ortega was able to do, especially the and everything where he let go to get a better lock in on Watson while hanging off of him, and that's a different type of talent that's probably going to take him to the belt, if not further. And right there, that talent is going to make him a superstar. Like he's far. So I mean, like, what do you think? Do you think that Brian Ortega can become a superstar? I just really think that he can, and uh, I think when we talk about talent here, that Brian Ortega, you know what? If he's promoted right and he's pushed by the UFC the same way that McGregor, I think Brian Ortega, if he were to win the belt, if superstar, just like Conor McGregor, if not bigger, especially with the message that he comes across of trying to promote, positivity directly through the UFC and what he does. Liking that, I'm just gonna have to say yes. Brian Ortega is definitely there in that whole superstar category that you were talking about. So now I'm gonna have to say UFC 26 or UFC on Fox 26 that's going on right now. Lawler versus Dos Anjos. So far, these fights are going amazing. There's so many knockouts and so many submissions already going on in this fight. Like right now, Ricardo Lamas just lost to Josh Emmett. For the viewers out there, if you're not watching the fight, and that was a spoiler, just curse us out later in the comments. But yes, Ricardo Lamas just got knocked out by Josh. He just took this on a short notice fight. Josh Emmett just basically put himself on the map by taking a short notice fight, Lamas, and then also knocking him out. Ricardo Lamas, who's been, up there in the elite of his division for years on end. That just happened, people. After you get home, if you're not able to watch a fight, go back and check the highlights. It's clearly amazing stuff. But other fights on the card, like the hype train of Galore Bofondo getting taken out, just it's just crazy. And also Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira, yet again, taking out somebody like who's supposed to be somehow this world beater that the UFC has been hyping him up to be, and saying that the only times that he's lost of taking fights on short notice or because he made a mistake. It's no mistake anymore. Misha Cirkunov is not that much of a hype train as the UFC has purported him to be, and Glover Teixeira has proven that, getting him down to the ground and getting his back. It's supposed to be a high-level judoka. So that makes no sense out there for everybody who's actually watching the fight or have seen the highlights. Misha Cirkunov, he's just going to have to go to the back of the line for now. Glover Teixeira has proven himself time and time again to be up there in the upper echelon heavyweight division. There's been other great knockouts, other great fights on the card. We have to talk about Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Mike Perry. That was definitely a great fight, as we're all on the Mike Perry train. We all love the antics. We all love his trash talk and his weigh-in day antics and everything. But Santiago Ponzinibbio, he outslugged Mike Perry in that whole entire fight, and it was a pleasure to watch. It was a pleasure to watch. Everybody was thinking Mike Perry's going to come in, knock Ponzinibbio out, and just make a whole spectacle of it, like he did when he did with the breakdance from his fight before, but not this time. Santiago put on a great show, took the fight from Mike Perry, and there's just a lot of other good fights that people are going to have to go back and watch on this card, as it's actually still going on right now. We're actually having to take a break because we're doing this podcast just to talk to you guys about all this stuff that's going on, and we're glad that you all are here with us. So if you're actually watching 26 right now and also watching this podcast, hey, thank you for joining us. Talk about that. We still have fights going on that we should out, but yet again, we don't want to spoil it for that might not actually be watching it. So we're just going to talk about the next fights coming up, and also take a look at the fights on. All right. So just took a quick break for a second, and now we're getting back to it. So now we're getting on to the actual main fight with Robbie Lawler versus Rafael dos Anjos. And we've been hitting the forums, we've been hitting, the posts, we've been hitting the groups, we've been hitting the pages, and nobody's expecting Rafael dos Anjos to win this fight. Dos Anjos gives up so many stats in this fight that it just doesn't make sense for Rafael dos Anjos to actually be in this fight, much less win it. So, but the thing is that a lot of people forget is Rafael dos Anjos, he hits like a Mack truck. And the last person who hit Robbie Lawler like a Mack truck also took his belt. Tyron Woodley. Rafael dos Anjos hits like a Mack truck. And kind of still really tough for a lot of people to say, hey, Rafael dos Anjos could be in this fight. What? A 3-inch height advantage, and he gives up a 4-inch reach. And Robbie Lawler is not going to let up. Robbie Lawler is going to bring the pressure. So who really out there is actually picking Rafael dos Anjos to win this fight? I'm not. I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to come ahead and say it right here on the podcast. I am not picking to win this fight at all. I think he'll make it to the decision. I think that he might get close to split, but I am not picking him to win this fight. That's just a Robbie Lawler violence, just bleed fan in me, but I just don't see how he does it. Out there, you might actually know something that I don't, and I mean, just go ahead and tell us. I would actually like to know myself. Okay, people are out there saying that Rafael dos Anjos hits harder than Robbie Lawler. That's a given. That is definitely a given. I could take that. More than a lucky punch, this fight from Robbie Lawler. And maybe Rafael dos Anjos can do it. He's done it before. He's really that dang good. So maybe he takes it, maybe he doesn't, but I just don't see it. But this is going to be a great fight. It's going to be, hopefully it's filled with a lot of violence, satisfy that just bleed section of us MMA fans, and also to make this card like a really good one, even though it's a UFC on Fox card. Make up for any other lackluster fight on the card. Hit that just bleed section in us. And I think that this fight between Robbie Lawler and Rafael dos Anjos possibly fill that role. So, I mean, any other fans out there, like, what do you really think? Let us know. We don't mind. But you all let us know, and I'll go ahead and talk about picks for UFC 219 card. A historical card. Why? Because taking on Chris Cyborg. The reason why this is a historical card is Holly Holm, more than anybody, has a chance to actually make history than anybody else entire card. Not only does Holly Holm have the record in the World Guinness Book of Records for the first fighter, male or female, hold championship belts in 2 different combat sports. This will also be her chance to solidify herself in history by first woman to decisively beat Chris Cyborg, win a belt in 2 different divisions in the UFC, thus becoming the UFC's first holder. So Holly Holm actually has more stake in this fight than Chris Cyborg herself. So this is definitely a historic card that people have to watch, especially since Holly Holm is also the type of fighter that has the skill and the violence necessary to not just hold her own, but also bring the fight and possibly beat Chris Cyborg at her own game. There is no inches given that Holly Holm has a 1 inch reach advantage and Chris Cyborg has a 1 inch leg reach. No givens here. Like they both are amazing at kickboxing. And they're both really, really great at boxing. Holly Holm is a boxing champion. It's like Chris Cyborg has been training with boxing champions for at least the last 2-something years now. Go on her Instagram, check it out. You'll see all of that. I mean, 2 years of boxing training with champions isn't going to close the gap that Holly Holm has as a multi-year boxing champion, but it's definitely going to help Chris Cyborg put a foot in this fight in that whole entire boxing category. So this is a historical fight, and hopefully fans do not miss that. But still, I'm going to take a step out of that fight. I can really not say who is going to actually win that fight. I really can't. That's just how crazy even that this fight is, and it could go either way. So let's talk about the next fight on the card. Nurmagomedov versus Barboza. Everybody's watching, Barboza highlights and all this fun stuff of flying knees and kicks and all that type of stuff, but he has the skills and he has the timing and he has the accuracy to actually neutralize all of that. And the reason what makes this fight so good is because Barboza just hit anything. He could time it. He could basically nail you coming in for a knee. He can nail you going in for a punch. He can nail you just standing there. Difficult of a fight for Nurmagomedov because Nurmagomedov in his last fight with Michael Johnson, a lot of shots. I don't know if it was because he didn't care or they didn't hurt or because he just couldn't defend it, but he took a lot of shots. Just don't know how a spinning back heel kick to the head is really going to affect him, and I don't think it's going to be positive. People are counting Barboza out of this fight. I don't think they should. They should give him a little bit of credit, even though Nurmagomedov appreciate the clinch and just take him down to the mat and turn him into paste. Everybody's paying to see in that fight. Like, let's all be honest here. There's other fights on here, like Esparza's getting back in the ring, back, and he's fighting Neil Magny, the fighting robot, because the guy, fought, I think about 5, 6 something times last year. It was a crazy amount of time, so I'm just going to call him the fighting robot. And just to see him back and fight somebody who's game to actually fight him is going to be something amazing as it is. It's a historic card. So, yes, I believe that this is going to be a historic card, and it's just going to be a fun card to watch because, Cavillo versus Esparza. See Esparza back in the octagon as well, but Carlos Esparza, as great as a wrestling technician as she is, has not been able to hold up against a blitz of any proportions when it comes to the striking, to the striking game, and she's going to bring the blitz. What happens to Carlos Esparza when she gets put in blitzes? But still, it's great to see her back, and maybe off she can actually have shored up those skills and actually make this a really, really good fight. So that's going to be great to see as well. Brian Rivera or Jimmy Rivera versus John Lineker. That's going to be a slugfest as is. And Hands of Stone is possibly going to take this because Jimmy Rivera is going to engage, and it's just going to be a slugfest. And I just see John Lineker just too many times, and the power is just too much. So that's going to be another fight that's not going to really be making history for UFC or MMA fans, but something that just rounds out a really good card in between Roundtree versus, Condit versus Magny, Cavillo versus Esparza, Rivera Lineker versus Barboza. That's just a whole main card right there in itself. And Cyborg versus Home. So those are really just, and also just a little preview of what's going to happen and what's going on at UFC 219 and why you MMA fans out there should really watch it. Just look out for that. Go check the cards. Go check the stats. And just tell us if you agree. Just say, hey, you know what? This is going to be a really damn good card, and I'm going to be glad to see this. So for tonight, and I want to thank you fans for joining us on this episode as we talk about GSP, Conor McGregor, UFC WME, USADA, all that fun stuff. Don't forget to look out for that guy. He's doing good stuff. And just even this card. So, up the card, Dos Anjos versus Robbie Lawler. And thank you for joining us. I can't say it enough. Have a good night. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. We're out.